welcome back to Local Decision 2020. I'm Rusty Ray, and we're joined today by Tom Newland, a council candidate for Blaine City Council in Ward 1. Tom, thank you for coming back.
Pleasure to be here once again, Rusty. Thanks for the invitation.
You got it. We were here just a couple of months ago and kind of in the primary process, kind of introduced you, and we talked a lot then about your experience, the Panther Foundation, SBM Fire Board, and of course with the city of Blaine. In this process, through the primaries and now since the primaries, have you built on those connections? Have you been talking to your contacts and developing more contacts based on this network of people you already have?
It surprised me how many votes came through in the primary because of exactly what you said, I believe. And a degree of resonating with the voters. The primary voter, I think, is fairly well informed. It surprised me how many people that I've never met before, never talked to, I had contacts with. And expanding upon those networks, you can't do that enough, but I didn't push anything really too hard just to see what was going to happen in the primary. My expectations were, I didn't have any expectations. The expectation was, see what happens. And it was surprising to me how quickly the results came in after the election, the polls closed at 8 o'clock on that night. I mean, there was stuff that was posted by 10 after 8, quarter after 8. And the magic of expectations that the Secretary of State was saying with all the mail-in ballots was, you might not find out for days. So to find out that it was basically done within an hour and a half or so was interesting to me.
Well, and they're even redoubling those efforts sort of for this general election with all the information about mail-in balloting and all the information about absentee balloting, and then kind of combating misinformation that folks are spreading around. Heading into that, are you feeling the same way, or what you learned from that primary night, are you feeling the same way? And just in terms of the process, the outcome is whatever it is, but the process of running for office in this bizarre time has got to be maybe in some ways daunting.
Yeah, again, I've not done anything like this. I'm the only candidate on the ballot in the city that has never run for anything before. So my expectations are see what happens with it. In the last couple of months have flown by. I mean, it's amazing to me how much time campaigning and an election takes. It's gone. I mean, this was on the calendar for, I don't know, a couple of weeks, and all of a sudden it's here. It seems like it was just yesterday. And equally with the election, I mean, the primary was, what, 5 weeks ago or so? And now we're 6.5 weeks away from the general. I mean, it just marches right along. Days are getting shorter. It means when I get done with work, you got maybe an hour or so before it gets dark, and the weekends are disappearing, so things are going past very quickly, and that surprised me.
So how do you spend that time? What do you do in that, even if it's only an hour in one evening a week, or or in the evening only a little bit of time? What are you doing?
Once I get past this, and actually this is the last thing I've got before the general election, so far as I know. I mean, I've never door knocked before, so it's somewhat uncomfortable where you're standing there with a mask and you're dealing with people that you don't have any idea who's on the other side of the door. And there's not a lot of people that are answering the door. Some of that it surprises me sometimes in the middle of the day when I'll be out and about. You see how many people are home during the day, working at home, remote working, with schools doing distance learning and the like. So that might be an opportunity, but that doesn't work well for my business schedule sometimes.
So what are you hearing when you get somebody's undivided attention, even for only a few minutes? What are Blaine residents or residents in Ward 1 saying to you about what they want to see happen?
I think there's a lot of caution out there that I'm seeing. I mean, it's not, let's really go forward and go hog wild in new development. I mean, that'll happen organically through business and the like, but maintain an even keel. I mean, let's get through the COVID-19 crisis and see how long that's going to last, because that's truly the unknown that none of us have ever experienced, and seeing how that's going to shake out over the long haul. I don't know that. I mean, there's people out there that are on fixed incomes, that are retired. There are people that still have not been called back to work for their job. And that's uncomfortable times for everybody, really. So what do you say to somebody like that? I don't have words for that. But I think the answer is let's try to keep things fairly low key before we can get past the mountain of whatever COVID-19 brings us. How long it's going to last, I don't know. I mean, nor do you.
No.
If you did, we'd both be geniuses, but we'll see what happens. I mean, I think it might take longer than we really expect. I know they've got a $2 million plus shortfall that's expected for 2021. I would expect that would carry over through 2022. So I don't think the city can do a whole lot beyond just let's maintain an not try to do too much too quickly.
What do you think about what the city has been able to do? The county got a chunk of money, the city's got some money from the CARES Act.
Yep.
Blaine turning that around for businesses and trying to help in that regard. What are you seeing that the city is doing in this short term to try to help those who may have some of those concerns?
Right, and I know that the CARES Act and the monies that are available for small business, I did not apply. Actually, I applied for one through the state and I was turned down.
Oh.
I would rather not reach out for anything. I think there are businesses that really have to. I think the restaurant industry, bars, restaurants they are forced into the situation that they are in through no fault of their own. My business is not retail oriented, it's business to business, and accordingly, we can really feel it. But I think what the city has done, to answer your question, specifically with bars and restaurants, what they've been able to do with loosening up the restrictions for patios in particular is huge. I mean, I didn't think that sitting under a tent in a parking lot was the most exciting place to spend time compared with, say, the Tavern has a beautiful outdoor patio. But sitting outside under a tent in a parking lot, that's not so bad. I mean, you get a nice breeze going by. It's more comfortable, I think, for the patrons too, that you're outside. You're then letting the fresh air take care of whatever transmission may be going back and forth. And sitting a little bit further apart, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think the city's, they're trying, I think they're setting a good example too at City Hall, where they were very cautious, they were very slow before they opened things up, and seeing what the partitions are like in the council room chambers. And I was in City Hall, well, I guess it was prior to the League of Women Voters event, once since February, and it was very stark to look at how open it was, how bustling it was, to now you can't get past that front desk. And seeing all the gates shuttered with all the windows, I think they're trying to set a good example, and I think they're doing that. I think there's a reason that government sometimes moves fairly slowly, because they want to make sure that they're doing things right, and in this circumstance, they probably are, but maybe it's time to start going a little bit faster. You need to make an appointment to go in City Hall. I don't know what the answers are. Again, I'm not there, but to let people walk in and take care of some business without having to deal with it, or the phone or via email, might make sense.
In your conversations with folks at the face-to-face events with your opponents, is the conversation being taken up by COVID, and is it neglecting things that you feel like the city should be focused on? And obviously, you're right, to get over that mountain as you described it a moment ago, that's going to take precedent over a lot of things. But are there things that the city needs to be addressing otherwise that you feel like COVID could be taking the attention from?
I think that the attention that it's getting is well deserved, because it is the biggest thing that we've ever experienced in our lifetime. And I'm not diminishing anything beyond that. I think that, yeah, we'll get past this at some point. What's it going to look like a year from now? I don't know. We might still be wearing masks. There are people that are going to continue to wear masks because they're more comfortable. That they like the feeling of protection. Hand sanitizers are with us and will continue to be. So there's a lot of that distancing that may well continue. Accordingly, do we want to start looking at, I mean, Highway 65 is now moving forward. There's some conversations about it, where there's now a study that we can all take a look at what our options are. There's some that I've looked at very briefly that I don't like, and others I think it's a good conversation. And that is one that will, and it's moving forward despite COVID-19, which makes sense. There's other construction projects out there. If you look at 35W, that's not a state or a city thing, obviously, but they're continuing to work on things. My neighborhood in Rice Creek neighborhood, they just ripped up Xylite and Rice Creek Parkway. It's good that they're rebuilding it, because you shouldn't stop. What does that do with the interaction with the workers, the construction workers? They're probably distancing, I don't know that. But looking for the future, I know the 2030 plan, the 2040 plan that the city has are continuing to evolve, and they will continue to evolve. I know the city council, the workshop, as example, last night, they were talking about the police department, what the structure is and what kind of officers they need. And those are things they should continue to do, because you will need the core services of police and fire and water and sewer and roads, and they continue to be working on those things. So I don't think that the COVID-19 is taking away from any of that stuff, but it's clearly the issue that needs to be dealt with before you can look too far into the future.
You mentioned last time we talked that you spent some time growing up in Anoka County, and your business has been established here for a long time, and you found that the more you involved yourself in the community here, you started to run into people that you knew, that small town feel. And so that's got to be part of what people like about living in Blaine. Yes, it's part of a metropolitan area
Yep.
on the upper northern rim of that, but it's a metropolitan area with a small feel. And those core things that you just talked about, the meat and potatoes of city government, of providing those services
Right.
and that infrastructure, people want to see that continue, but also people don't want to see their taxes go up or to have to
Right.
sacrifice something else. You mentioned the budget shortfalls. Are there going to be some really hard choices once the insurmountable COVID is passed? Are there going to be some really hard choices before cities like Blaine?
I think that every city, every layer of government is going to be having some hard choices. You look at some of the land that's out there that's zoned for commercial, industrial, and everyone wants to be at a groundbreaking. You want to see a big shiny building go up. But at the same token, we've got some of the big box stores that are out there that are empty. You've got Northtown Mall has clearly changed. And we like to see the new things, the new shiny toy, but we also need to make sure that we're not ignoring the things that are still there. Redevelopment is going to be a big part of what I think is going to continue, especially now with the impacts of COVID-19, where there are businesses that are no longer in business. They're not going to stay where they once were. And you're going to find things on all of our major streets that there's now empty retail, there's now empty buildings. And let's see what we can do to fill those up. Economic Development Authority, the EDA, is going to have their hands full and dealing with some of these things as best that they can. I mean, market forces in business will decide where does a new building or new business want to go. And if it's the right opportunity, if it's attractive for a business to take over a building that's 50, 60 years old, even 20 years old, then that'll happen. And to give the EDA people and the city an opportunity to, here's the message that we have, let's embrace it. Let's see what we might be able to do to help some of these properties so we're not totally neglecting them.
Currently, there's the Northtown bus transit area by Northtown Mall, and I think it's
Right.
going to be moved, or it is moving because of some real estate there with the mall. Are there more transportation options that could be available to Blaine and Anoka County, but Blaine specifically, obviously, like as the metropolitan area continues to grow and folks here may realize that they can take advantage of that? Do you think there's more opportunities for mass transit in the city of Blaine?
I think it's a matter of promoting where the mass transit is right now. I was talking to one of the Hy-Vee people who we were working with on a project, and he mentioned the location in Spring Lake Park and how they really like that because of the proximity to the high school where you've got your workforce there. You're accessible to mass transit on Highway 65 and Old Central, and how much that really appeals to them. And the workforce, if it's coming not from within the city, it's coming from outside, they need to be accessible on mass transit. Equally, the location just down the road here, across from Blaine High School they liked, it doesn't necessarily have the same mass transit access on 242 or Main Street, as it were, to do some of the commuter fill-ins. Maybe that makes sense, or the commuter bus line type things to fill in. Those might make sense to explore. I know the Anoka County has a nice little bus service that they provide on demand, I believe. I'm not sure what it costs, but to take advantage of the situations that we have where mass transit is, or being close to Highway 35W, 65, 47, whatever it might be. Those are things that we'll need to make sure that we're at least bringing the awareness of to businesses and people that they want to live out here. This is an opportunity for you to get to where you're going, or you might have an opportunity to work right here.
Okay. Tom Newland, that's the time we have today. We appreciate you coming back.
As I mentioned before, the time goes quickly.
Yes, it does.
This rocketed right by.
Yes, it does. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rick.